And also, if anybody needs the closed captioning, you can click it at the bottom of your screen where it says CC live transcript. You can get the scroll at the bottom of the screen if that's helpful to you. Okay, so I am going to share screen. And then I'm going to make the slideshow. I believe it has worked. Can I get some confirmation? Yes, thumbs up from Megan. Okay, here we go.
Looks like you're in presenter mode though. Like I can see the next slide in the notes section.
Oh. That work?
That looks better.
Okay. Does not work better for me on my end. Here we go. Let's just do this. Okay, so okay, so I'm going to tell you just a little bit about us and who we are, and then we'll go in and talk a little bit more in detail about some of the things you need to know to come to Columbia and be a pre-health student. So we are the Center for the Office of Pre-Professional Advising, housed in the Center for Student Advising, which is it's in Lerner Hall when you get to campus. Up here on the screen is our email. As George said, if you send an email to preprofessional@columbia.edu, he's going to be the first person to get it and probably respond. There's also a link here, a URL for our website. In just a little bit, George is going to put some links in the chat for you to access information about being pre-health, and as well as information about the listserv that he mentioned just a minute ago. Okay, so the topics we're going to cover today is the advising system as a whole at Columbia, specifically the pre-medical process and the pre-medical committee process. We're going to go over your academic preparation for health professional school and the courses at Columbia that will help you fulfill it. Specifically, we'll talk about your first semester schedule. And we'll also talk everything that I'm going to talk about today in terms of being pre-health at Columbia and covering the pre-medical curriculum, et cetera, is in a document called our pre-med handbook. George is going to put a link in the chat to a page where there's a link to both the pre-medical handbook and the pre-dental handbook if some of you are interested specifically in dentistry. So he'll put that in the chat and you can access that yourself. So everything I'm going to cover today can also be referenced there if you don't get it all down. We're going to talk generally about the personal competencies, the qualities that med schools are looking for, and that you in the coming 3 and 4 years of your time as an undergraduate will be sort of working to develop in yourself. We'll talk specifically about some pre-health opportunities at Columbia, give you some general things to consider, little tips of advice, words of wisdom, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. We ask that you when you have questions to type them into the chat, and then we'll go through them at the end, but we'll read them from the chat. So it won't be a live question and answer with you actually asking the question, but we'll read them from the chat. So if you have questions as we go along, just put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. Okay, so it's important for you to know that at Columbia, you're coming into what is really a big community of people here to help and advise you along the way. Everyone has been or will be in the next few days, if they haven't already, assigned a main point person, a main advisor at the Center for Student Advising. There's then our team, which is specifically pre-professional advising because you're interested in the health professions. Once you declare a major in your sophomore year, you'll then be given a departmental advisor as well. And then there's also a number of offices around campus that are designed to help you with various pieces of things that you might do along the way. For instance, there's the Center for Career Education that's there to help you with internships and postgraduate work opportunities. They help with resume building, et cetera, that kind of thing. There's the Undergraduate Global Engagement Office, which is kind of a fancy way to talk about what is the big bulk of what they do is help students with study abroad. They do some other things as well, but study abroad is, if you're interested in studying abroad, you would go to the Undergraduate Global Engagement Advisor. Then there's also an office for undergraduate research and fellowships. The famous fellowship that a lot of people have heard of is the Rhodes Scholarship. So if you decided down the line that you wanted to be a Rhodes Scholar or apply to be a Rhodes Scholar, that office would help you with that. There's dozens of such fellowships, but that's sort of where that office would help you do that kind of a thing. Okay, so we're going to focus today on the pre-professional piece of it. So as an office, there's a whole bunch of things that we do to help support you on your journey towards health professional school. One thing we do is we maintain a listserv, and George is going to put a link in the chat for where you can sign up to be on the pre-health listserv. We encourage everyone to do that. That's how we communicate with the pre-health community at Columbia and let you know if there's programs coming up that you might be interested in, or events. Once down the line you're in getting closer to application, that's also how we communicate some aspects of inaugurating an application. We also do a lot of individual advising. So we are here for one-on-one advising appointments all year long. We look forward to meeting with all of you. We're going to give you a lot of information today. We ask that you maybe once you're on campus and settled and get oriented a little bit, you wait at that point and come in and maybe talk to us. We're going to give you a lot of the information you need to get started. Your main advisor can help you get started. We're super busy in the summer helping our current med school applicants. So we hope to meet with all of you once you're on campus and settled a little bit. We host a number of workshops and programs all year long, different panels of physicians, med school visits, summer opportunities panel. Once you're in the application process, we host a number of workshops that are designed to support your application, a personal statement writing workshop, an interview workshop, that kind of thing. Guest lectures, as I said, we bring a lot of med school deans to campus to talk to you about their programs. We work all year long to stay in touch with medical schools so that we can sort of stay on the cutting edge of new information about schools and develop relationships and keep relationships alive with the deans of med schools around the country. And then a big part of what we do each year is for the actual current applicants. So this is something that's several years down the line for all of you, but we are part of the pre-health advisory committee, and we create what's called a committee letter or letter of evaluation for your application once you're in the process. You don't need to worry about that right now. We just like to mention it so that down the line, when you're thinking about applying, you've heard this and you know what it is. Essentially, we take your letters of recommendation that you get from faculty and research mentors, et cetera. We collect them together, and then we write what's called a committee letter, which is a sort of narrative, introduction, presentation of you to the medical schools that then your supporting letters get appended to. Like I said, this is not something you need to worry about right now, but we like to put that in your head so that you have heard of it down the line. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to be pre-med at Columbia. So pre-med is not a major or a concentration. It's not something that you have to sign up for anywhere or register in any way. It's really just a self-identification for yourself that tells anyone else that you talk to, including us today, that you are intending or interested in, while you are at Columbia, preparing to go to medical or other health professional school. As I said, we advise any kind of health professions applicants, whether that's medicine, dentistry, nursing, public health, occupational therapy, and we cover the gamut. At Columbia, we tend to have a lot of students interested in either medicine or dentistry. And so when I say pre-medical, I sometimes slip and say pre-medical because we deal with a lot of med school applicants. But you can always hear health professions. And if you're interested in any of the other health professions, we'd be more than happy to help you. It does not have to be medicine, even though I do default to saying medicine a lot. So being pre-health or pre-medicine at Columbia really just involves a whole bunch of things that you need to do while you're an undergraduate. First and foremost, or at least first and most initially, is to take the prerequisite coursework and get started on what, as you'll see, is a hefty amount of preparatory coursework that you need to do for medical school. But then beyond that, you get involved in activities that demonstrate and investigate your interest in healthcare and medicine. Get involved in activities that more generally demonstrate your commitment to service and being of help to people. You test and, like I said, investigate your motivation for this career by exposing yourself to places where doctors, nurses, and patients come together for healthcare delivery. It's called clinical experience, clinical exposure. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's a key piece of your application is actually having exposed yourself to medicine and seeing what it's really like. And then you take the qualifying exam down the line, either the MCAT or the DAT for dentistry. Okay, so a question that people often have when they come into undergraduate and are thinking about medicine is, what should I major in? We hear people say, do I have to major in biology because that's most closely connected to medicine, or can I major in anything? Maybe I should major in something else. Maybe that will make me stand out. The answer is neither of those is true unless what underpins it is your true desire for studying that. Try not to feel tied to what you think you should do at every moment. I mean, talk to us. There are probably some shoulds along the way, but it's really more important to think about what you really want to do, because med schools love to see sort of the organic development of interests in their candidates. They like to hear, I did this and I did that, which led me to be interested in that. And then I decided to major in that, right? Like they like to sort of see that story evolve in a person. And they never want it to be like, well, I thought I had to major in biology, or I thought it would be better for me if I did English. It really needs to be what has organically developed as your interest. And I will tell you that absolutely any course of study is compatible with going to medical school. We have had, I might hazard to say, we've had somebody apply from every major at Columbia. Probably, maybe you could find one to prove me wrong, but I think we've had everything from dance majors to chemical engineers, right? So the whole gamut of majors have applied to medical school successfully. So it's really important to find something to study that you'll really love and do well in, and worry less about what you think would be best for your application. And explore, as much as you can. The pre-med curriculum is a lot. The core curriculum is a lot, as you know, or you will know soon. But as much as you can, explore. Dream big, discover your interests, and follow them. Like I said, the med schools really love to hear that sort of organic through line of the development of your interests. In terms of course scheduling, it's also important to take in that there's actually no absolute set schedule or timeline to move through this curriculum. I've had people sit up when they were seniors and decide they want to go to medical school, and we make a plan for how it can all come together. There's many, many different possible paths to medicine. And you should know that most Columbia students actually take a gap year or more between undergrad and med school. It's close to 90%, I think, at this point. So it's just important to know too, that there's just a lot of different ways to move through this. If you don't get started right away, or if you take a break from it, there's always a way to come to us, recoup, and move on. So don't get overly tied to like one sort of lockstep path that you have to go through. Okay, so there may be 3 different groups of students on this call. I think the vast majority of you are incoming first-year students at Columbia College or Columbia Engineering. However, there may be a handful of you that are coming in as sophomore transfers or junior transfers from other institutions. And there may be a handful of you coming in as part of our combined plan in the engineering school. All are welcome on this call. I am going to go through the curriculum, sort of presuming that you are an incoming first year, to talk about sort of how to cover the entire curriculum while you're at Columbia. If you're a transfer or a combined plan student, I encourage you to meet with your main advisor. They're going to be the one that's going to help you figure out what's coming in, what's getting transferred, what you still have to take, et cetera. There's a lot up in the air right now in terms of how we're bringing everybody to campus, and what kind of sessions are going to be in person versus virtual. Still, we may have a session for transfers and combined plan students in person on campus, during NSOP at the end of August. And so if you're a transfer or a combined plan student, sort of keep your eyes open for that potential session, once you're on campus, because then we could go with you a little bit more individually. But like I said, I'm going to presume the vast majority of you are incoming first years. Okay, so I told you it was a lot, and I do not lie. So here it is. The pre-medical coursework recommendations, and we're going to go through them specifically and what covers them at Columbia. But essentially, the courses that are going to prepare you for medical school and that the med schools are going to look to see that you've fulfilled are a year of English, 2 years of chemistry. So that's 1 year of general, or sometimes it's called inorganic chemistry, 1 year of organic chemistry, both of those with labs, 1 year of biology with lab, 1 year of physics with lab, a year of math. So that's 1 semester of calc and a semester of stats, a semester of introductory psychology, and a semester of biochemistry. Okay. So English. We're pretty lucky at Columbia because the core curriculum for the college students, for Columbia College students, you more than fulfill your English requirement. The engineers, it's a little trickier because you have a smaller core that you do. So we want to make sure if you're coming into the engineering school, you do pay attention to what's going to work to fulfill the English requirement. So everybody in the whole university takes 1 semester of university writing. That's 1 semester of that year requirement done for everybody. Then in the college, you're going to take a year of literature humanities and also a year of contemporary civilization. You know, either of those, and certainly both of those, would cover that sort of second semester that you need. Or absolutely any course in the English department, even if it's called science writing, if it's in the English department, it will cover the requirement as well. With engineers, I know some of you are hesitant about Lit Hum, literature humanities, or contemporary civilization, because you can also fulfill your core requirements with global core, and sometimes those courses they're often very appealing courses to take to round out your core. Unfortunately, those are not going to count for the English requirements. So as engineers, if you want to be sure to do sort of double work with your core, you need to take either literature humanities or contemporary civilization, and that full year sequence will round out your English. Like I said, or any 1 semester English class. Okay, so at Columbia, because our intro to bio has chemistry as a prereq, Columbia students start with chemistry. A lot of colleges, a lot of your friends going to other colleges may be taking bio in their first year. We don't do that at Columbia because we do need that year of general chemistry prep to start bio. So everybody starts with chemistry here. General chemistry, and then organic will follow either in your 2nd or 3rd year. So the main option for chemistry that most people, most students take is 1403, 1404, GChem 1 and 2. Each semester is 4 credits for a total year of 8 points. Then the lab that goes alongside it is a 1 semester 3 credit course. It counts as a year of lab. If you're looking around at different medical schools, some say they need to see a year of lab. That 1 semester course is a year of chemistry lab. And like I said, this option is appropriate for any pre-med student in CC or Cs. Anyone can register for this course. You don't need to do anything but register for it. However, we do have something called the chemistry placement exam, which I encourage you to take it if you've got a strong preparation in chemistry and you think you might want to see if you've got the material and the background to join a more advanced sequence. Take it. You can let's say you take the chemistry placement exam and it places you ahead, but you're feeling a little overwhelmed and you just sort of want to get your feet solid under you and you decide you just want to take the regular intro. That's fine. Just because you place into a more advanced sequence doesn't mean you have to take it. Also, you technically don't have to take the placement exam to place yourself into an advanced sequence if you really feel confident that your chemistry preparation is strong. I do want to tell everybody, med schools aren't impressed by you biting off more than you can chew, right? They're impressed with you sort of knowing what your limits are, knowing where you're at, and sort of challenging yourself, but not excessively challenging yourself. So if you think you might have a preparation, I encourage you to take the placement exam because that would help you be sure that you've got the background that you need to move forward in a higher sequence. But also don't think the med schools are going to be super impressed by advanced chemistry unless that's the right level of challenge for you. So throughout your undergraduate years, you're looking to find sort of the right level of challenge. You don't want things to be too easy, but no one's impressed with sort of taking on more than you can handle. So I encourage you to sort of be honest with yourself about where you sort of place yourself if you place yourself higher. So if you take the placement exam or like I said, you feel confident in your preparation, you can jump ahead to 2nd term general chemistry. So you get like a real fast, the first session of this course is a real fast overview of GChem 1, presuming everybody's sort of ready to just move on with the 2nd term, and it all comes at you at a slightly faster pace. And then for the lab, if you do decide to take the advanced GChem, then you can either take the intensive GChem lab that sort of moves at a more advanced and faster pace as well, alongside the lecture course, or you can always go back and just take the regular GChem lab. Either is fine. It is important to know that if you take one of these more advanced sequences, essentially skipping parts of GChem or all of GChem even, and you have AP or IB credit, 4 or 5 on those exams, you will get AP credit onto your transcript as a result. And that can be important down the line to round out your credit totals for med schools. Because if you jump ahead, like if you jump ahead to the second term, you don't have credit for the first term on your transcript unless you get this AP credit, which would then be able to show a med school sort of that full year of GChem credit. Then there's another option, which is that you're so strong in chemistry and your foundation is so strong that you don't really need to do any GChem. You can jump right to Orgo. So you can jump right into potentially to Orgo. You still have to do the GChem lab. So at that point you would do the intensive GChem lab, and then you would do the Orgo lab. And Orgo lab is either the intensive Orgo lab, which is a 3-credit course done in 1 semester, or it's 1.5 credits that you do twice. Orgo 1 lecture, Orgo 2, Orgo 1 lecture, Orgo 1 lab, Orgo 2 lecture, Orgo 2 lab. And again, with this sequence as well, if you have that 4 or 5 on the AP exam, you'll get credit, you'll get 6 credits to round out the GChem credits that you obviously won't have because you jumped through it. Okay, so we start with GChem, we start with chemistry, some version of chemistry, either GChem, second semester intensive GChem, or Orgo. Then you can move on and take Orgo. If you don't do it in your first year, if you take Orgo either in your second year or your third year, it kind of depends on you. Some of our engineers do Orgo in their second year, while some of our college students wait until their third year because they do, bio in their second year. It's really sort of up to you and something that you can talk about down the line with either us or your main advisor. Pretty straightforward Orgo Chem sequence: Orgo 1, Orgo 2, Orgo 1 lab, Orgo 2 lab. Okay, so after chemistry, some form of chemistry in your first year, it is really common to move on to bio in your second year. It doesn't matter, whereas the AP credits came into play with chemistry, AP credits don't come into play with bio. It doesn't really matter if you've got a 5 on the bio AP exam, you still need to go and take our bio at Columbia. So this is the sequence at Columbia: bio 1, bio 2, and then again, a lab here that is a 1 semester 3-credit lab, but it's a year's worth of bio lab. If you're an engineering student and you're going to be a biomedical engineering major, the labs that you take as part of that major, so BME stands for biomedical engineering, the labs that you take for that major will fulfill the bio lab requirements. So you need to do the 2 lecture courses, but you don't need to do the 3-credit lab course. Most pre-medical students at Columbia in the college take the bio lab, but we should let you know that there are some alternative ways to fulfill the bio lab requirement, which are listed in the handbook, and you can check that out. Like I said, most people just take this course. It's a great course. People actually really love it a lot, but there are some other options that you can check out if you're interested. And like I said, GChem is a prerequisite to this bio, so it would really not be appropriate for you to try to register for this course in the first year. If you're interested in potentially majoring in environmental science or sustainable development, there is a slightly different sequence that you can do that can help you knock out pre-med requirements as well as move forward with your major requirements. That would involve taking the environmental bio course, EEEB 2001, this coming first semester. The first semester of your, well, they do it sometimes first year, right? E3B sometimes does it in their first year, or they wait till sophomore year?
I think most wait till their sophomore year.
Yeah, because you're busy with GChem, that would be a lot. So in your sophomore year, instead of taking 2005, which is the bio 1 in our bio department, you would take the environmental bio 1 and then join our bio 2 in the spring. So your year would be environmental bio in the first semester and bio 2, regular bio 2 in the second semester, and then go ahead and take the contemporary bio lab.
But Nikki, they also need to take the second part of the
for their major, but not for pre-med.
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah, so for your major, you would also have to take environmental bio 2. there's a full year environmental bio sequence, but this is how you can combine the two for pre-med, but then yeah, your major requirement would have to go on and take the second semester of environmental bio too. So then you would take the bio lab. The caveat to this sequence is that the environmental bio 1 obviously has a slightly different focus than our bio 1, and there are concepts that the MCAT will expect you to know that you may miss because you're taking the environmental focused bio 1. So just the caveat to that is that there might be some concepts from the regular bio 1 that you would need to self-study. Okay, so physics. There's, as with chemistry, there's a number of different levels of physics, and you do different ones depending upon whether or not you're in the college, whether or not you're in the engineering school, and your general preparation in physics from high school. Engineering students, as well as college students who are interested in possibly majoring in physics or in biophysics, should probably knock off physics in their first year alongside whatever version of chemistry you're doing. If you're not going to major in physics and you're not an engineering student, then physics could be done alongside bio or be done alongside orgo in your junior year. So the basic pre-med physics sequence for the college students is the 1200 sequence, physics 1, physics 2, and physics 1 and 2 lab. So you do lecture and lab first semester, lecture and lab second semester. And like I said, this is the sequence that the vast majority of pre-med students in the college take. So a lot of you will take this sequence. However, if you are in the engineering school, or like I said, you want to do a major in physics or biophysics, you would do what I'm going to show you is the next tier up in the sequence. And with the 1200 sequence, you do lecture and lab together, lecture and lab together. With these sequences, you do the entire lecture sequence and then do the lab component. So from 1200, we go up, the next step is 1400. This is the entry-level physics for the engineering students and for students hoping to go on and do advanced work in physics or biophysics. There's an even faster paced, more advanced level, which is the 1600 level. Again, this would be only for engineering and college students with a very, very advanced preparation in physics. And then there's an even more accelerated tier. Again, this option would really only be for students with a very, very, very strong background in physics and math. And the vast majority of med students do not take this sequence. And like I said, this is really for somebody doing advanced study in physics. What, Meg?
This course also requires that you take a placement exam to place into it.
Oh, yes, look, it's right there on the slide. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, you have to take the placement exam, which will be offered later this summer. Okay. Okay, so the lab options, again, if you do the 1200 sequence, which is what the vast majority of college students will do, you do 1 point lab each semester for a total of 2 points. That's your year of lab. If you do the upper level one, the 1400 sequence, you can do one of these 1400 level labs. They're 1 semester and 3 credits for the 1 semester, but again, that's a year of lab. Or the intermediate lab, which you could do, but again, that's going to be mostly for junior or senior physics majors. Okay, so math. This prerequisite varies by medical school. Some med schools don't invest, a lot of med schools don't specifically specify any kind of a math course sequence that they want to see. But some say that they want to see what they say they usually frame as a year of college math. And then some will spell that out and say calc and stats. But even if you see a prerequisite says a year of college math, their preferred combo is a semester of calc and a semester of statistics. And some schools have even started to require statistics. So you should definitely be thinking that 1 semester of calc and 1 semester of stats will be part of your preparation. There's 3 levels, there's actually 4 levels, but for the pre-med prereqs, you're generally looking at Calc 1, 2, or 3. If you've got an AP 4 or 5 you would jump right into Calc 2. If not, then everybody can just take Calc 1 and Calc 1 is a co-requisite for GChem 1. So most of you will be taking GChem 1 with Calc 1. Okay, so there's a bunch of different stats options. There's probably even others that I haven't found here. The main stats option, if you just are like, I'm pre-med and I just want a stats class for being pre-med, by all means take 1101. That's the one that actually has the most amount of biostatistics in it and is the one that would be a great preparation for moving on with your med school preparation and application. However, there is a version that presumes calculus as the basis, and if you want that sort of more advanced working stats, you can do it that way. But then, you know, if you're a psych major, you're going to have to take a stats class for psychs, and that's fine. That will knock off your stats requirement. The biostatistics for engineers class, if you're an engineer and need to take that class. So any stats class that you find as part of your major will do it. It's not like you would need to take 2 stats class for pre-med. You just take 1, and any stats class would fit the bill. Okay, so biochemistry. The MCAT is the qualifying exam for medical school and has a lot of biochemistry on it. So we really do recommend taking 1 semester of biochem. There's no lab attached with it. It's just the semester of biochem. And a lot of med schools require it, and every med school, if they don't require it, strongly recommends it. So all things considered, it's great to take a semester of biochem before you're done. There's a couple of different versions at Columbia. Again, either of them is fine. They have a slightly different prerequisite course structure. So one of them has the full year of GChem, Orgo, and Bio as a prereq, and one of them has the full year of GChem, Bio, and just 1 semester of Orgo as a prereq. So you could take it alongside Orgo 2 if you wanted to, but that's really the only main difference between them, and either is fine for fulfilling this prerequisite. So this is the requirement that I mean, it's great to take psych in general, and we have some great psych courses at Columbia, but there is a section of the MCAT that is devoted to a lot of intro to psych information. So we do recommend, if you can, to fit in, if possible, science of psychology at Columbia. That seems to be the course that we have that sort of most contains relevant information for that section of the MCAT. There's also a lot of sociology on that section of the MCAT, but we don't have a social course that will really help prepare you for that. But we do recommend, you know, trying to take a psych intro to psych course to help you with the MCAT. And just as a little caveat, the DAT does not have that same section with psychology, and so you know, by all means, science is like great course, take it if you're interested, but just know that if you're pre-dental specifically, the DAT does not have the same psych section. Okay, so that was the core prereqs that everyone preparing to go to health professional school should be ready to complete while they're at Columbia. But different schools have different miscellaneous requirements. And so it is a little bit up to you not to know now all the schools you're going to apply to, but, you know, sort of be thinking about these schools and being familiar. You know, everybody should be thinking about what their state school is and making sure that they know what their state school prerequisites are. You don't want to, you know, if you're from California, the California state schools want to see some additional biology on top of the intro sequence. So, you know, you should at least be aware of prerequisites at your state school so that you're not caught by surprise down the line, because everybody should be applying to their state school in the future. And like I said, what we've put together is generally what will prepare you to apply to the vast majority of medical schools, but we just have to put in a caveat that things change all the time in this business. And so it's partially, you know, your responsibility to keep up to date with prerequisite requirements to the schools that you know are sort of most interested in applying to. Okay. So as we mentioned a little bit before, you know, AP the AP credit may come into play for some of you with your overall preparation for medical school. Most schools will accept AP credit for some of the classes. They'll accept it often in place of semester. I mean, at Columbia, you have to take a calc class to get the calc AP credit, but if you got AP calc credit as a result of taking calc 2 at Columbia, then your application would essentially have a year of calc on it. It mostly comes into play with chemistry. And so, like I said, if you place into one of the advanced chem sequences, you just should be aware of this issue. And, down the line, maybe come check in with one of us about the way your AP credit might figure into your application if you placed into the advanced sequences. And sometimes, because not every school will take AP, if you do jump ahead in the sequence, we might recommend down the line taking some advanced chemistry courses, either an intensive chem or intensive orgo. We recommend that if you do place into intensive chem or intensive orgo, that you follow up with biochem and possibly another upper level chem course, sort of depending on the schools you want to apply to. This is not something to worry about right now, but down the line, something to talk to us about. Okay, so beyond all of that coursework that you need to do, what are med schools looking for? And this is a thing that we want to work with you on and help you with along the way. So I'm going to go through some of the sort of issues that they're looking to assess in their incoming applicants. So like I said, you need to have exposed yourself to medicine and patients. They need to see that you know what you're getting into, that you've seen what doctors really do, and that you've started to develop some of the interpersonal skills that you'll need as a clinician down the line. So, comfort in talking to and being around people in a healthcare setting, sick people, an ability to talk to people really different from yourself, an ability to establish a quick, warm rapport with a stranger. The qualities that you'll need as a clinician, they like to see some evidence that you're starting to develop some of these skills and have started to develop some of these skills specifically in a healthcare setting. So, and involved in that, just general knowledge about and motivation for medicine. So everybody should be thinking about how did I get interested in medicine? What is my story? Why did it first occur to me? Because that's something that they'll be interested in down the line. Exposure to research. They like to see that you've exposed yourself to some methodology for producing new knowledge. That can be basic science wet lab research. That could be public health research. That could be human subjects research, clinical research at the medical center. They define research very broadly, but they like to see that you've exposed yourself to it in some capacity. Evidence of service. Medicine is a service profession, and so they like to see, evidence that you've given up some of your time freely to help people in need. It's a cliche to say doctors want to help people. It's a cliche, but you actually do you need to want to help people. And you can't just say that, right? You need to show them evidence that you've been willing in your life to help people. It's much better to just be able to show them some service that you've done rather than try to just tell them that you want to help people. Just really show them that you have helped people already. Maturity, and as I said above, strong interpersonal skills that you've at least started to develop in a healthcare setting. Leadership and depth of involvement. They'd rather see you involved in a couple, 3 things that were super important to you over the course of your time at Columbia, and that you stuck with them for several years, that you rose to leadership maybe in some of them. So they're really looking for depth of involvement rather than I was a member of 12 clubs. They'd rather see that you were a member of 3 clubs and president of 1 or vice president of 1 or something like that. Generally, a willingness to challenge yourself. So knowing when something pushes you outside your comfort zone and being willing to live in that space, not just doing things that are full of people that you're comfortable with and that and not just doing the things that come easily to you, but sort of thinking what doesn't come easily to me and how could I challenge myself to get better at it. They love to see evidence that someone hated public speaking, but they joined the debate team, right? Like doing something to sort of strengthen your weaknesses and be uncomfortable and learn what it feels like to exist in that discomfort is something that they're interested in. And then metrics, strong GPA and the qualifying exam scores. Okay, so I'm going to go through what I mentioned was earlier was this notion of competencies, interpersonal and intrapersonal competencies that the medical schools specifically, there's 9 of them that they are specifically looking to assess in their incoming applicants. And you can find this list on the AAMC website, which is the governing body for the American medical colleges. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, but you'll start to hear, and some of these ideas and things will start to resonate in your brain as things that you need to think about, how you're showing, how you're developing, et cetera. So as I mentioned, service, they want to be sure that, you know, that you've been willing to help people out freely. So social skills, you know, it's hard to assess this until you're in a room with someone. You can't just show somebody social skills on paper necessarily, but they like to see that you've put yourself out there in environments where you have to engage with people, chosen some activities that have forced you to work on your communication skills, forced you to work with people and interact with people. So cultural competence, you know, we say this, and I think everybody sort of has a general vague sense of what it means. But if you say, define it, everybody gets a little bit, well, I'm not exactly sure how to define it. I think I know what it is, but I like to think of it as, you know, how do you respond when you encounter difference, right? How do you navigate someone really different from yourself? And this is something that everybody needs to be able to do. I saw a funny thing online where a woman was like, why do I have to keep doing these cultural competence trainings? I'm the cultural that everybody needs to be competent with. And I, you know, it was a funny little meme, but everybody needs to learn to navigate difference. So for wherever you are, you need to learn to be able to understand the position of someone else, communicate with somebody who had a really different upbringing than you. So this is something that everybody needs, no matter sort of what your personal cultural affinity group or identity is. Okay, so let's see. Teamwork. So healthcare is a team endeavor in every incarnation in the world. And the med schools love to see evidence that you haven't just sat at a carrel in the library by yourself working for 4 years, but that you've engaged in teams. Engineers kind of have a head up on this because you get thrown into team environments in your classes from day one, but college students have to work a little bit harder to make sure that they're doing things that involve working with a group to achieve a common goal. And they like to see evidence that you've been able to navigate a team environment. Oral communication. So, you know, every clinical encounter involves, you know, explaining something complex to somebody who maybe doesn't have a background in science, right? So you need to be good at communicating ideas. You need to be good at gauging your audience, figuring out what someone understands and doesn't understand, and then make adjustments accordingly. And so putting yourself in environments, talking in class, that's a good place to start. Just challenge yourself to talk in class, right? That's, you won't be perfect every time, but that will start your ability to express your ideas in a group or to another person. Ethical responsibility to self and others. This is a really hard one to assess on a paper application, obviously. But I can tell you that to go into medicine, you have to have a very strong internal compass around sort of what's right and wrong. So the first thing you can do is not get in trouble, right? I mean, there are going to be rules at Columbia that you may not agree with. There may be rules at Columbia that you think aren't as important as other rules, but it's really important to be someone who can follow the rules. Make good choices. A lapse in ethics is about one of the worst things that can happen for you. You can bounce back from an F in this business, but it is really hard to bounce back from, you know, having cheated on an exam or plagiarized a paper. So there's no grade, no matter how bad, and I just said the F word, right? I just said F, right? There's no grade that is worse than cheating to avoid that grade. And I'm just completely serious. I'm not making it up. I've got Columbia students who failed a course and still bounced back and went to medical school. So really make good choices. The F will not kill you the way cheating will in terms of this application process. And it's also important to know you do not need all A's to go to medical school. You know, if you look at national averages, it's scary. It looks like everybody needs a 3.9 or 4.0 to go to medical school, but those are national averages. At Columbia, those numbers are not, as it's not like only 3.9 and 4.0 from Columbia goes to medical school. The averages that get Columbia students into med school are substantially lower than that. So, you know, a B plus honestly is a great grade. A B is a good grade. Don't get myopic. Don't think that if you have You need all A's. And this is gonna be hard because most of you are coming into Columbia with all A's on your high school transcript, and it's gonna be tough. And I won't lie about that. It will be tough if you get that first B, but again, do not lose sight of the big picture. A B is not gonna hold you back from medical school. And what you do need for your application is evidence that when things were rough, you went through it, not around it, right? You rolled up your sleeves and worked harder when things weren't going your way. They love to hear stories that you're that kind of a person. They'd rather see that than one, cheating, or evidence that B crumbles you and you don't get out of bed for 3 weeks, right? Like they like to see evidence that you know how to marshal on even when things aren't perfect. Connected to that, reliability and dependability. Do what you say you're going to do. Show up on time. And when you can't, communicate, right? Just if you can't do something, if you've bitten off more than you can chew, that happens to everybody. Just make sure everybody knows it. If you say you're going to do something and then you can't, just tell somebody that you're not going to be able to do it. Don't make appointments and skip them. Don't roll into class late every day. Don't commit to 4 hours of volunteering and then not do it, right? Just sign up for the things that you are going to be able to do and then do them, and communicate when you can't. Again, connected to a few of the things I've said. Also, oops, I forgot some slides. Resilience and adaptability. So again, they like to see evidence that you can keep marshaling on even when things aren't going exactly the way you want them to. So, your worst moment can actually turn into a really strong story about that for your application down the line, because it can be a moment where you really showed what you're made of. And then a capacity for improvement. Set goals for yourself. Challenge yourself to do things that don't come easily. The med schools love to see that. I mean, medicine is signing up to be somebody who has to improve constantly, has to improve skills. You won't graduate from medical school knowing how to do everything you're going to need to do in your career. You're going to have to go do continuing ed courses, and you're going to have to go learn how to run a new machine that's just been invented. And so willingness to do that, willingness to keep learning new things, to take on challenges, to start here and work to get better is something that they also love to see evidence of. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things you do as a pre-med student is get involved in things that show and experience and develop your interest in medicine. And there's lots of organizations at Columbia. This is just a sampling. You're going to go to a fair where there's all the organizations come out and talk to you about their groups and what they do. So you're gonna have a lot of choices in terms of what to get involved with, but this is just to give you some ideas. So we have an all student run ambulance corps at Columbia. You train as an EMS and you're certified as an EMTB in New York State, and you run an ambulance corps that serves the Columbia community and the surrounding area. It's a great service to Columbia. It's a great thing to do if you're interested in emergency medicine. We have a very vibrant chapter of the American Medical Student Association, AMSA, Medical Student Association. That's current med schools and med students and undergrad students around the country. And our group has a number of subgroups, like there's a women medicine subgroup, a global health subgroup, a public health subgroup. So you can get involved in that group and find sort of your niche in that pretty easily. We also have the Charles Drew Pre-Medical Society. Charles Drew was African-American surgeon and researcher who lived in the first half of the 20th century. He's widely credited with developing our understanding of blood transfusions and pioneered the development of our large-scale blood banks. And that group is open to anybody, but it has a special focus of providing community and support for students who are currently underrepresented in medicine. Like I said, the group is for everybody and they do great programming all year long. Pure Health Exchange is a group which members of that group learn to teach high school health curriculum. And you go out into some of the local public schools that lack funding for a health curriculum, and you teach health studies, health class, and you might teach, there's a whole bunch of different workshops. There's sexual decision-making, alcohol and drug, nutrition. There's different, all the things that you would teach a high school student in a health class, you learn and then you go teach in the public schools. It's a great local service and a great way to demonstrate you're interested in health and community health and preventative health, et cetera. There is a group, a specific pre-dental group, Columbia Barnard Association of Pre-dental Students, cute little acronym, CAPS. That's available if you're interested in dentistry. There's lots of research opportunities. There's SURF, which is the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship at Columbia, which is funding to do a summer of research in a lab at Columbia, biomedical research in a lab. There's an independent research course that you work in the lab and you do the actual, real world lab research that's being done, but you can get course credit for it by enrolling in Bio 3500. CEAS, which is our acronym for Columbia Engineering. The Columbia Engineering has lots and lots of research opportunities for its students. And then there's a clinical research program over at Mount Sinai, which is adjacent to Columbia's campus in Morningside Heights, where it's a research program in the Department of Emergency Medicine. So the Department of Emergency Medicine conducts research. They employ volunteers in their ER. You learn what all the different studies are that are being conducted, and then you monitor ER admissions and see if anybody might qualify for one of the studies. And if so, sometimes you talk to them about it. Sometimes you do informed consent. And then often you pass them on to an attending physician to process the actual research. So that's an opportunity as well that's just across the street.
Nikki, I just want to add here, and I know that you started off by saying it, but I want to emphasize that this is just a sampling. There are so many other organizations, opportunities. Obviously, we have, we're rich in resources of hospitals and research labs in New York City, some associated with Columbia, some in the surrounding community. There are so many ways to get involved and to enrich your experience and your interest in health and medicine here. Check out our website. That's another source where a lot of these things are listed. The listserv will connect you to many opportunities. So just be on the lookout for things that might interest you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just in hospitals alone, we are so abundantly rich in Manhattan. I mean, any interest you have, there's a hospital, and every hospital has a volunteer program, right? So there's Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is our cancer hospital. There's the Hospital for Special Surgery, which is orthopedics. There's the Children's Hospital uptown. So, anything that interests you. We have VAs in the city, Veterans Association hospitals in the city. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for exposing yourself to specific things in medicine that you're interested in exploring. Okay, so as we just mentioned, you need to get clinical experience. It's good to show evidence of a service orientation. So for clinical volunteering, as we said, hospitals, first response teams, EMTs, clinics, hospice care, private practice settings, some nursing homes give you a chance to see some medicine. And then in terms of service, think broadly about all the needs that are out in the community. You could serve as a free tutor for a kid in Columbia, in New York. There's homeless shelters, soup kitchens. Columbia has something called the Double Discovery Center, which is a tutoring program as part of our community impact. We have a community impact organization that's just like what it sounds, taking Columbia students and trying to have an impact on the community that we're in different service related ways. So there's a whole bunch of different little programs within community impact that you might get involved with. And then faith-based groups. I know a number of you will want to hit Manhattan and find a church community, faith community, and those often have service opportunities, as well as any of you that are athletes. Often the athletics teams have service opportunities built into their programs as well. But again, these are just samplings, and there's lots of different places to get all of these experiences, both clinical and service and research. Okay, so a few tips. Get off to a good start. Assess your study habits to see if they're adequate. Everyone is coming to Columbia with really good academic record. Some of you have a really good academic record because you're really smart and you just kind of did it, but you didn't really put together a study program, right? And some of you have A's because you're also really smart, but alongside that, you also developed a strong set of study skills. You're all really smart. You're all should do well academically here, but some of you need to go through the process of really figuring out what your study skills are and if they need improvement. And they often do, to be honest, they often do. High school was easier than Columbia will be, and you may need to just improve your study skills. Something as simple as pre-reading material. Instead of just walking into a lecture cold and hearing it for the first time, then check out what they're going to talk about. Read the chapter. And hearing it for the second time in a lecture, right there improves retention. So it might be something as little as that, but do that. Go through the process of really thinking, how much time do I need, and are the skills I'm applying to this adequate? And as Davina said, we've got a lot of support services at Columbia to help you figure out your study skills, figure out support, and do that. There's no shame in needing help at Columbia, absolutely none. And the reason that Davina talked about that and that we've got a huge academic support unit at Columbia is for that very reason, because people come and they need some help and there's no shame in it at all. Connected to that, find a good balance. You know, don't get overextended outside or frankly inside the classroom, right? You need to find a good challenge for yourself in your coursework, but then you also need to find complementary things to do and life-sustaining things to do outside the classroom, things that you love to do outside the classroom, but you don't want to get yourself so overburdened that you're suffering and not giving yourself enough time to study. Because you can tell the med schools down the line, well, if I hadn't done so much outside the classroom, my GPA would be higher. And they're going to say, show me the evidence. You should have done less outside the classroom and gotten those grades up. So it's all about finding balance. Join the listserv. Joe, I forgot to, George, did you put the link to the listserv in the chat?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so there's a link in there. Click on it. You enter your name, your uni, and you get to choose sort of the listserv that you want to be a part of, but join the pre-health listserv. Get to know us, get to know your main advisor, get to know faculty, talk to faculty. They're people, just like you and me. They put on their pants one leg at a time, they eat breakfast, they have things they love, they have things they hate, they have bad days, they have good days. They're people just like you and me. They're really smart, they're really accomplished, but they're also really interesting and interested in you. And it will enhance your experience as a student. It will enhance their experience of teaching if you reach out to them. Go to office hours. You don't have to have solved some huge big problem that they put forward in their class for you to just go say like, hey, I'm loving this. This is great. I'm interested in this. What else could I read? You just saying, hey, like I said, don't go when you've got the solution to a huge problem and you've solved world hunger. Go to them beforehand, right? Besides, we all know after watching the launches in the past week who could solve world hunger and is not. So don't put that as your marker. Go talk to faculty. Get to know yourself. Be honest about your strengths and your weaknesses. Nobody has to nail this right out of the gate. You know, you need to know that this is going to be a bit of a process, getting adjusted, figuring out how much time you really need to study. Just be aware, introspect and be aware, and take care of yourself. Med schools want to see evidence that you know how to do this. Sleep, eat, exercise, find community, make friends, have a social life. It really is truly all about finding balance. And there are no awards for so much stress and so little sleep. That's a myth, but that's something to strive for. Balance is what you really should be striving for. Again, I know I'm hitting you over the head with this, and you might take this as a sign that this is a problem at Columbia. Students who get here and are afraid to ask for help. They think they should be able to do it on themselves. It's called imposter syndrome, right? You get here, you're struggling a little bit. You think, oh, admissions made a mistake. They shouldn't have admitted me. I don't belong here. Not true. I've talked to admissions. They know exactly what they're doing. They admit people that can be here and do the work, but it's not always easy right from the start. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't think you're the only one struggling. It is not true. Medicine is a team endeavor. Scientific research is a team endeavor. Learning about science should not be a solitary experience. There are study groups, there are department help rooms, there's tutors, there's teaching assistants, faculty, peer tutors. Everyone is here to help. So use the resources. No shame, use the resources. Learn your limits, be present. Don't spend all your time worrying about things that are several years down the road. Really, honestly, what you should be worrying about is my classes first semester. Where are they? Get to them on time. Do my homework, stay on top of my homework, make some friends, join some groups. If you're not from the city, get used to the city. You know, stay safe, follow the rules. Those are the things to worry about. You don't need to be worried about the MCAT. You don't need to be worried about which med schools to apply to. You don't need to be worried about how to get into the Columbia's medical school. Just come to Columbia and be here as an undergraduate first and foremost. And again, we've said this before, but we'll say it again. Don't just think about what you should do. Don't just think I've got a list of things, check, 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 check. You know, do the things that you're passionate about doing, explore your interests, have fun. Medicine will be there. We will help you get there. In 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, I don't know, I'm close to Megan, not quite at 20. In all those years, there's everybody that's come to us that's wanted to go to med school, you know, by and large has gone to med school. So you can do this, and it's important to find your own path to do it and not just think that you've got check off a bunch of boxes. Whew, okay. Almost exactly an hour. I'm good. We've got a half an hour left for questions. So Meg, you got the chat? Ooh, look at all those chats.
No, as
There's
if the
actually
chat's
no
mostly
questions.
us.
Just links and such. Maybe you did such a good job, there are no questions.
Oh, wait, no, there's questions. I see questions. So if you take a gap year, which most students do after graduating, did you answer these already, Meg? No.
No,
If we take a
Yeah.
gap year after graduating Columbia, are these resources still available to us? Oh, good question. Yes, for the price of admission, you have bought us for life. We have had people go out and we had guys and gals that went out and were Homeland Security agents for 10 years and came back and applied to med school through our office. We've had military come back after 10 years. PhDs in Japanese literature come back after 10 years. Like there's no downside to delaying your application, taking the gap year, getting that experience postgraduate. We are here. You're the same to us as a current student as you are an alum. You can continue to meet with us, access all our resources, et cetera. It's absolutely seamless. We actually do a lot of things. Once we're in the application cycle, we do a lot of things specifically designed for working alums because the vast majority of our applicants are working alums. Okay.
I think
some of
there's
the
a
questions
question
may
in
have come just to you, Nikki, because we don't see them.
Oh, okay. Would the global core count? I'm assuming that was a question about English, and it does not count as English. Oh, okay.
Unless it's in the English department.
Unless it's in the English department. Occasionally, the idea of the global core is to do comparative work. So they are rarely in just the English department because that is itself a sort of narrowing category. But occasionally there is something that counts as global core and is also listed in English. If it's English and it's global core, that's fine. But if it's global core, not in English, it's not going to count. Okay, will we be able to meet virtually with our advisor before registering for classes? You will be able to meet with your main advisor, yes, virtually before classes for sure. In fact, everybody should be having a session with their main advisor to help them get registered and figure out some stuff. So yes, absolutely.
You should be getting information about your assigned advisor in the next, I would say, within a week.
Yeah,
So
soon I think it's coming out.
sometime
You'll
very
get-
soon.
So you'll get information about who your dean is that you've been assigned to and information about how to register for an appointment with them. Okay, let's see, somebody just thanking us, had to leave early. How many Columbia undergraduates go to Columbia Medical School and how easily accessible is it for undergraduates to do research, shadow doctors at Columbia Medical School? Okay, so we don't get overly focused on Columbia Medical School. Columbia Medical School is one of many phenomenal med schools in this country. That being said, a lot of our candidates do apply to Columbia Medical School and a good number, 10 to 20, I don't know how many walk up campus to uptown each year, but it's about finding the right fit. And just because we always tell people, just be completely open-minded about where you're going to end up in medical school. There are so many great med schools out there. Be open-minded. Columbia might be one of the options down the line, but there's a lot of great med schools out there. And that's one of the things that we do is help you find the med schools that are the right fit for you. Yeah, there's a lot of research up at the medical center. A lot of our students go uptown to do research. Shadowing is a little complicated. State by state, shadowing has different constraints and rules on it. New York is one of the states that it's more difficult to just let somebody walk into a hospital and follow a doctor around. So we don't focus on shadowing quite as much as we focus on becoming a volunteer in a hospital setting, because that gives you access to the hospital, that gives you access to doctors. Shadowing is a fine place to start if you can find somebody to shadow, but it's not always so easy. So we tend to focus more on getting yourself into a sort of volunteer environment in a healthcare setting.
There's a question here about placement exams. How do placement exams typically work? So placement exams are administered by the individual departments, and they're not worth an exam grade or anything. It doesn't affect your, sort of your grade in the semester. It's just to give the department information about where you should start, right? What course is most appropriate for you to begin your studies there. So there's placement exams in the language departments to make sure that you know, if you, should you be in Spanish 2 or Spanish 3? They want to make sure that they have the information to give you that appropriate placement. You'll get information a little bit later as the departments you know, roll that out. Some of those may be virtual. There may be some in-person components, but you know, again, you'll have all that information on the Countdown to Columbia. There will be lots of information from your advisor that will connect you to those opportunities.
Here's another one for you. You can answer, Meg. For volunteering, do you recommend we wait until our second semester or even second year rather than starting first semester of freshman year?
That's a great question. And absolutely, I do recommend that you wait. I think that and I think we would say we recommend that you wait. We all would agree on that. Your first semester should really be a time where you just get settled, where you figure out how to take the subway, where you make new friends, where you figure out your classes, you figure out your study schedule and just get comfortable. That's really what your first semester is about. Learn about the resources that are out there, thinking about maybe joining, you know, a student organization or two to create community, to meet other people. And then waiting to, you know, sort of commit to a full volunteer experience when you have a better sense of what is your free time like, and how do you want to spend that time. So second semester, summer, beginning of your sophomore year, all of that is fine. You don't have to do it from day one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it goes back to that, you know, what Nikki was talking about with just thinking about your own timeline and finding time to know yourself. And I think that a lot of times when you come in, you can kind of get swept up, I think, in like the pre-med world and think that, oh, I'm not doing enough. Oh, I need to be doing this. I need to join this. I need to join that. But I think that if you can kind of take a step back and think about what you want your experience to be, and like Nikki said earlier, too, being present in your experience, because a lot of time you can get wrapped up in this idea, you know, of going to medical school and every little thing counts. You want to enjoy college as well, right? So, and you want to be a well-rounded person while you're here and take advantage of all the things that are offered to you. So, I think that like the best advice that I can give is just making sure you just know yourself and stay within your own, you know, your own course and chart your own path.
Yeah, definitely. For medical summer opportunities at local hospitals, are you able to live at Columbia over the summer? No, not exactly as you've asked that. I mean, housing at Columbia over the summer is complicated, and there are programs that have housing attached to them. And that's something to think about as you're applying to summer programs. That's definitely a perk that you can try to look for, is does it include summer housing? But, you know, if you're just gonna volunteer at the hospital for special surgery, that's not going to qualify you for, you know, for summer housing. It's a little complicated for summer housing. It's not impossible, but the short answer is no. The long answer is it's possible to have that as a perk. You just kind of have to look at the programs that you're applying for.
I think the other answer there is you can pay for that housing, but it's expensive. So if you're just volunteering, we probably wouldn't recommend that. We'd rather see you volunteer close to home where you can live for free and you know, and save your money. But there, as Nikki said, there are some programs that have housing attached.
How common and difficult is it to double major as a pre-medical student at Columbia? You want to take that?
I mean, I can tackle that one. I think that it really just this is where having the conversation with your advisor really comes into play, because you'll want to really map out, you know, the courses that you're going to take and when you're going to be able to take those courses. I will say that sometimes you know, students may have an idea that like, for an example, I have a lot of students that want to do like the special concentration in public health, and sometimes it doesn't really always work out that they can take all of the courses. But I always say to them that you can still take some of those courses, so you can still take some of those courses that you're really interested in alongside you know, the other major that you have, and not necessarily finish out the concentration itself. But I think that the best way to approach it is to have the conversation with your advisor to be able to map out those courses and see if it's a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, we always want to have a conversation with students about what they're choosing as a major. And if you want a double major, the question is why? You know, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What do you think the double major is going to get you? And as Davina said, you know, if you're interested in bio, but you're also interested in finance, you know, take some econ classes, right? Whether or not you get the minor or the major isn't going to matter as much when the dust settles. They're going to look carefully at your application. They're going to look at the areas that you took courses in. And they're going to see like, oh, this person challenged themselves. They must have a sort of interest in economics. They took some advanced econ work. That's really great. Like I said, whether or not you got that last 3 credits for the major or last 3 credits for the minor isn't going to be as significant as the fact that you express that interest by taking some courses. So always ask yourself why, and have that conversation with advisors before you sort of decide you're going to do one thing or another. It's always good to sort of figure out what your goals are. Okay, as a student athlete, will lack of time for certain things inhibit our application? Meg, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I think that we and medical schools really understand the commitment that athletes make to their teams, and therefore don't expect that you're going to have a lot of free time to do other things during the academic year. Therefore, we really encourage you to actively use your summers. I think you want to start planning for what am I going to do this summer pretty early on so that you can make that a productive use of your time, whether that's doing a research program or a clinical volunteer program or gaining some service work. That doing that in your summers, knowing that you're going to have a little less time during the academic year because of your athletic commitment. But I would also say that, you know, athletics is really valued, right? You're showing commitment, discipline, time management, a passion for something, teamwork, right? A lot of individuals have the opportunity to take on a leadership role within their athletic team, either as a captain or as a member of the leadership council within the athletic department. So there's many, many great things about athletics, and you shouldn't feel that that's going to be a disadvantage. It's just really thinking about using your summers wisely.
Okay, there's somebody entered a whole list of questions. I think maybe I can knock them off pretty quickly. How do we get notified of pre-med events? That would be the listserv that we encourage you to join. So join the listserv. That's how we advertise events. What medical schools do Columbia graduates typically attend? All of them. I mean, we send people all over the country to med schools, literally in every state. Well, not every state has a med school, but you know, all over. So you can't really answer that. And the trick to this is finding the right list of schools for you to apply to, and then ultimately finding the school where you're a good fit. And that's something that we'll help you with down the line. Definitely not something to worry too much about right now. If we have taken a college course at a 4-year institution, will medical schools accept that? Yeah, so if that's something that you will show them. If you've taken college courses so far, that's something that will be part of your application. And it can end up sending multiple transcripts as part of your application, that's fine. What is the difference between introduction to psych versus science of psych for satisfying the psych requirement? Either are fine classes. You know, science of psych is one that we sort of specifically looked at the curriculum to see if it covered material relevant to the MCAT, but there's intro to psych courses that cover it as well. So either are really fine. And if a school specifically has, say, a behavioral science requirement, either of those courses would fulfill that. Okay. Do pre-med students typically take statistics in their first year after taking calc their first semester? Yeah, just whenever. Stats can come whenever. I mean, it can be helpful. You know, this isn't something that you're going to carve in granite, but it's helpful to have a spreadsheet and sort of be looking at 8 semesters and sort of figuring out where things can go. But yeah, there's no magic to when to take stats and beyond, you know, when it would sort of fit into your schedule. Let's see. Do students only get one advisor, or do we get a pre-health advisor and an advisor specific to our major? So yeah, so everybody's going to get assigned in the next, as Megan's mentioned, in the next week or so, you're going to get an assignment, a dean who's in the advising Center for Student Advising at Columbia, and that will be your point person. we, all three of us, Megan, Davina, and myself, are here to meet with you whenever you want to meet with somebody, like I said, after you've come to campus and got settled. At this stage of the game, you can meet with any of us. Anybody whose appointments work in your schedule, come meet with us. We just ask that you don't bring all three of us the same series of questions, because you're going to get the same answer for all three of us. But if you pop up and have a question at some point, whoever's schedule works with yours is the person to see. Down the line, once you're in the application cycle, you do get assigned to one of us, so that you've got sort of consistency and continuity in your advising during your application cycle. And so somebody gets to know your story really, really well. But don't worry about that. That's not for several years yet. And then, yes, once you declare a major, you'll get a departmental advisor that's specific to you. So yes, there's a team of advisors that you will work with over your time at Columbia.
I always tell students also that if you want to assign yourself to one of us, that's fine too, right? Because you can just schedule appointments with the same person all the time, and then that's your advisor. And some people do that. Some people only meet with one person, and then other students meet with all three of us, and just whoever is convenient, and that's the next available appointment, and they take that. So it's really up to you. If you want to assign yourself, you can.
Yeah. And you can meet with me and decide I'm a horrible ogre, and then you're free to go see if Megan or Davina is any better than me, because I'm just terrible. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked that they're currently doing research at Sinai, and could they take 3,500 in their very first semester for that lab? I haven't heard of anybody doing that, but I don't know if that.
So during NSAP, there'll be an academic resources fair, and that is when, and it'll be virtual this year, and that's when all the departments, sort of hold, they usually, when it was in person, they had a table, and now they'll have just a Zoom room, and you can go in and ask those types of questions. So the biology department is going to be the place where you can, sort of find out a little bit more about the process of applying for 3,500. You have to, put forward a proposal and so on, and whether they would allow you to do that in your first term, and or allow you to have a mentor that's not a Columbia faculty member.
Are there students who major in financial econ but on a pre-med track? Yes, there are majors. Every major under the sun is represented. You can do whatever major you want, finish the pre-med prereqs, and apply to medical school. So any major is compatible with being pre-med. Can you use AP credit to count as credits for a class but still take the intro level class? For example, taking first level calc but using AP credits from a calc exam towards calc credit. So no. So if you have a 4 or 5 on the AP Calc exam, you don't take Calc 1. You take Calc 2. And then after you complete Calc 2 with a C or better, you get 3 credits of Calc on your transcript AP credit. Now you can just take Calc 1. Let's say you took AP Calc, but you're like, I was awful. I don't know how I got that score. I just really need to be the basics again. You can register for Calc 1. You're just then not going to get any AP credit when the dust settles. That AP credit will just not come onto your transcript. So you should take the class that's the right place for you in terms of your preparation and your comfort. But yeah, if you take Calc 1 and you've got a 4 or 5 on the AP, you won't get AP credit. How many undergrad students end up applying to medical school each year? 145,
I feel like
150. Go ahead, Megan. What are you going to say, Davina?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like we kind of have to separate that, because it's a little bit of a tricky question, because undergrad students, because most of our applicants are alums. So I mean, overall, yeah, I would say around 150.
Oh, I see. But how many are, and about 10% of those are current students when they apply, meaning they're trying to go straight through to medical school. So a very small percentage are actually undergraduates when they apply. Almost everybody has either just graduated or graduated in a recent year. Same question. When do students at Columbia typically apply to medical school? A big group apply the summer right after they graduate. Another big cohort apply the summer after the summer they graduate. So they do a 2-year gap period. It can be easier to get a job. Some people do 2-year service commitments like Peace Corps or Teach for America. So I would say the most common gap amount is 1 or 2 years, but we have people that take longer than that as well. So Most people apply with 1 or 2 gap years, but more is possible. Let's see, are students recommended to take advanced math courses such as Calc 2 if they don't need it to fulfill requirements for their major? I mean, if you like math. I mean, you can love math and not need it for your major and so want to take some advanced math. If you don't love math, there's no specific reason to unless you need it for your major or, 1 semester for med school.
You're going to have so many choices here, and I think that it becomes one of the most difficult things is there's so many courses that you're probably going to be interested in and want to take. And I think that's one of the challenges that you'll have throughout your 4 years is really narrowing those choices and deciding what you want. But you don't have to have it all figured out on day one. Your interests are going to organically evolve as you're here. And we hope that you're open to that.
Someone's asked about when they're planning ahead, are certain pre-med classes only offered in a certain semester?
Yes, they are. And you'll be able to see that in the bulletin, which is where the course descriptions are. There's a notation in the course description about when that course is offered. So it's an X for fall and a Y for spring. And typically they stay consistent. So biochemistry 3501, or I think it's now changed to 4501, is always offered in the fall, and it's never offered in the spring. So you'll get to know that. And again, your advising dean will know all of that information and will be able to help you to navigate that should you have questions. Right now, you just want to really try to get a sense of the basics and feel assured that there's going to be people to guide you along the way.
Almost done. We've got a couple more minutes. Somebody's written, is there a downside to taking a quote easier course option? Essentially, no. There's a disadvantage to sort of trying to game the system and get through with all A's and having Chartist the easiest path you can. That never looks good, I suppose. But the trick is to find the right balance and the right level of challenge, right? And if the easier option is the one that actually allows you to create the perfect amount of challenge in your semester with between course load and some advanced courses and maybe giving yourself a little bit of a break on another one. I mean, it's all about finding the right amount of challenge and balance. Would you agree?
I would say if you're thinking about taking Calc 1 and you've already have that knowledge, that you're cheating yourself. That why would you waste a course in this wonderful institution where there's so many things that you can learn by repeating something you already know? I wouldn't advise that.
Yeah, definitely not. But with like the physics sequences, let's say, you're not going to study physics. You're going to do something else. You're not going to major in that. Or med school's going to be impressed if you take 1400 or 1600 when it was too much for you. That's not going to impress them. They're going to be impressed with you having taken the one that was the right one for you to take. And so, again, like Megan said, you should not be taking courses that allow you to just regurgitate knowledge that you've already acquired. But there's also no shame in finding the right amount of challenge in your semester. And maybe, you take 1200 physics because you want to challenge and yourself to take something else that's ultimately going to be, maybe more important for you down the line in terms of what you want to major in or what you want to study. Davina, how often would you recommend students meeting with pre-health advisors?
I would say to check in. Once a semester sounds like a good amount of time. I think once you get within the application process, we tend to meet with students more often just because there are more questions that come up. But I definitely think that you should meet with a pre-health advisor. You shouldn't get to the point where you are applying to medical school and we see your name and we're like, who is that? None of us have ever met with that person. So you definitely, I think, want to, in the beginning, I would say once a semester, just to check in, make sure things are on track. And I think that as you continue to, go, as you continue on throughout your time at Columbia, you'll start to have more and more questions about the things that you're doing.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, I would also say, you know, there's going to be a lot of sources of information on campus. You'll have lots of upperclassmen that are pre-med that are feeding you information. You'll have information from, I don't know, your research mentor or your parents or other people. And it's a lot to keep track of. And sometimes that information will be conflicting and you won't know what to think. And I think it's really good to come in and talk to us about that, right? We've been in this business a pretty long time and can help you to sort through what's, you know, sort of right for you versus what was right for that other student that's, you know, a junior now. There's often not one absolute, and we want to make sure you think through those decisions and help you to think through those decisions. We're never going to tell you what to do, but rather help you, you know, think through all the different options and the consequences of one decision versus another, and then, you know, and then ultimately your decisions are your own. But it's a space where you can come and talk through those. And sometimes we can connect you to things that you might say, oh, I'm really interested in this area, and I say, oh, I have, you know, an alum that I worked with that's working in that area. Let me connect you. And so those kinds of things also occur because, you know, we do have sort of a wealth of other students that we know that we can make connections.
And I would say too, that sometimes that abundance of information can be the source of a good deal of anxiety. You know, you can start hearing things and start to get very wound up about what you aren't doing or what you think you were supposed to be doing or what you just heard you missed out on doing that you should have done. That's a good time to come in and run things by us as well, right? Because there's, like I said, there's a lot of information out there. It can be very helpful to get information from different sources like that. And like I said, I see it a lot start to make people quite anxious about themselves and what they should or shouldn't be doing. And so I have a lot of advising sessions every week where the person leaves going, okay, I feel a lot better now. I feel a lot calmer. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know what's true and what's not. So definitely that we can be the source of that sort of like, you know, help you get through the weeds of all the information and what's really, you know, we can help you layer it, right? This is actually most relevant right now. This you can let go of for now. You can worry about that later, or you don't need to worry about that at all. You know, we can sort of help you focus so that you're not sort of feeling overwhelmed and anxious about, you know, all of the things. Okay, well, the last question I think we have time for today is this going to be posted anywhere, the recording? I'm assuming they're recording it, not just for posterity in the archive, but so that it can be accessible at some point to all of you. Meg, do you have any idea? Is there like the NSOP, would it be on like the NSOP site? Do you have any idea where that would be?
Yes, I believe it'll be on the NSOP page or the Countdown to Columbia page.
Yeah, Countdown to Columbia page, NSOP page. So look for it. I'm not sure when it will be up there, but yeah, the goal is that it will be available to watch later on. Okay, everyone. Well, enjoy the rest of your summer. We're super excited to, oh my gosh, be on campus with live human beings again. This is very exciting. And so we look forward to that. Good luck with the rest of your summer and good luck making the big shift to college.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.